dear academicians, dear students, and those who are following us from our university's social media channels. I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar called Rota Film Industry Interview with Chidem Anna Alie. I'm Emrah Öztürk. I will be the host of this webinar. Before we begin to our interview, first I'd like to say hello to our precious guest. Hello, Chidem.
Hello, nice to be here.
It is a terrific experiment for us, an experience, because we are very proud and very happy to see you here. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And but before our webinar begins, firstly, we would like to watch our university's promo video. This video produced, shot, edited, and in every stage done by our students and our academicians and our staff. So let's watch it, and then we will be here again.
Okay, perfect.
Well, that was not a bad shot, but this is not how it all started. I've always been dreaming of becoming a filmmaker. I believe that a good movie can make our world a better place. But I need to learn more. Life is like a video game. It's fun and it's challenging at the same time. Every accomplished mission leads to another one. Look at these harmonious moves. A perfect combination of mind and body, absolute freedom of self-expression. Art imitates life, and nature is the ultimate masterpiece. To design like a master, you must learn the basics and then go beyond. But how? So our journey began to this magical place, Cyprus. We found our voices. We heard each other's songs. We captured our moment, and we painted our lives. Not to mention the fun. We illuminated our future. We learned from the past. The craft and the knowledge came together to create art. There's a lot to discover and a lot to be done. We were taken by hand, one by one. The journey goes on, and the future is bright. The seeds we planted will give years of beautiful blossoms. So our dreams came to life, and life became like a dream. The magic is real, only if you believe. The journey we began finally came to an end. But it's time for a new start. Now, let's take another shot.
Right. I like to say thank you one more time to our students and academic staff for this film. And for today, since we are talking about film, we have, as I said earlier, we have a precious guest, Chidem Anna Alie. And before we start to our interview, I like to say how we will going to follow this webinar. Firstly, we will see a short clip from one of the works of Chidem's, and then we will have an interview. Afterwards, there will be a Q&A session, and the students here in this room can ask their questions to Chidem. But also those who are following us from the social media channels, they can also write their comments, their questions into comment section. We will going to answer them as well. Now, for Chidem Hanım, I will going to tell you short information. The rest will be coming from her. She's a writer and producer of film and television. Growing up both Canada and her family home of Northern Cyprus, she worked as a news anchor, TV host, and producer for her local TV and radio station in Northern Cyprus before relocating to US. Across the pond, she has worked in film and television production coordinating, most notably on the hit show Prison Break, with other projects for Fox, Warner, Hallmark, Freeform, and Lifetime A&E. She has also produced advertising and brand content for companies such as Samsung and BMW. And since 2007, she is professionally in filmmaking industry in California. She starts with Grace is Gone, John Cusack film. And since then, she worked in approximately 28 different projects. Some of them are TV shows, some of them are TV movies, and some of them are films. Also, in 2011, she produced an acclaimed documentary. This space available. And in the same year, Harmony, a short film, and now there is another film in progress, Godson. I hope it will be released soon. Now, since our title is Road to Film Industry, I want to know your road to film industry.
Sure.
And my first question is going to be about to know your experience and your story before Grace is Gone. We know that since 2007, professionally, you're in California in film industry, but
Yeah.
what about before? How did you ended up there? How did you reach there?
Yeah. Great question. So I've been, I was born in Canada, so that already was an introduction to, this part of the world. And so it started like that. I was already kind of here, but my family did move back to Cyprus, and I spent, part of my childhood or adolescent years there, really. So, and I studied in Istanbul. So I lived between these three countries, really. But the inspiration for film, I studied literature, so I already was steeped in a background of, story. I think that's something that I'll talk about a little more, because I feel like there's different entries into the world of film, and there's different angles. There's the technical aspect, which is super important, the craft of filmmaking. There's the storytelling also, and the business. So I really decided, at that point, that for me, the draw was storytelling. The idea that you can get in front of an audience and say something hopefully meaningful. So that was my inspiration from, and from there I didn't know also. That's why I'm always happy to do these kind of things, because it takes some time to figure out why you want to do what you want to do, exactly in what position, how to get in, first of all, which we'll talk about all these. But So my real thing was I did start in TV in Cyprus also. Before that, I worked interning with some producers in Canada. I kind of started like that just to get an idea of, okay, how does it work? Maybe this way, as an assisting producers, I can sort of see different aspects of, you know, how the whole thing comes together. And then I began in television, you know, it was a news anchor in Cyprus and hosting programs. And it's interesting because that was already, you know, a nice platform, but there was something calling me. I said, okay, this is really lovely, this is nice, but I want to go to Hollywood. And I want to, you know, and it was ambitious. And, you know, there were a lot of people who said, they said, okay, good luck, you know, it's not an easy road. And I took that on, you know, and it came, and it really was not easy in the beginning. You know, there was a lot of, you know, it's very competitive. And like I said, so I felt like even after, you know, doing so much, like producing a program in Cyprus and, you know, being in front of the camera, behind the camera, and hosting programs and all that stuff, I did have to go back and, you know, get back sort of into the trenches and start, you know, that's how I found my way into advertising eventually. With John Cusack, that in 2007, I kind of landed, I guess, in his production company, you know, and at that time he was developing his own content. So on the one hand, he was acting in big Hollywood movies, but on the other hand, he was making these smaller indie movies. And so my role there was to help with the producing of those smaller indie movies. And when I say small, we'll talk more about all of this too, because everything is scale and relative. But of course, small indie movie led by an A-list actor is still bigger than, you know, some other smaller movies. So they were still, you know, mainstream enough that they got international distribution in the circuits and things like that. So, and I think that was a good springboard for me there. I really sort of got further inspired, like, wow, this is really possible. We're doing this, it's happening. And, you know, your introduction said it all, really. Like, from there, I've just remained here. So.
You know, what I see from your explanation, it doesn't matter which country or which city you are in, you are always determined. You know your skills, and you just follow your passion. I think this is the lesson one for our students. Be clear and definitive about your ambitions.
Yes,
and your dreams.
Mm-hmm. You have to be committed to it. You have to be.
It's because I know it.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, go ahead. That's all.
I know it from Cyprus. You know, working in TV stations might be challenging, and then it is always giving you something for the second step, and then you continued, as I see, and then continued. Nothing can stop. It didn't stop in Canada. It continued in America.
Yeah.
And still continuing. Your last film was with Bruce Willis.
Yes.
Your Detective Night.
We were lucky enough to have him. You know, he's probably retiring soon, so we were lucky enough to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in that case, how does it feel to work in Prison Break? Because doesn't matter in the scale of American TV shows or in action or prison, or doesn't matter which classification you do. Prison Break is one of those best TV shows ever made in TV history, and to be part of it, I'm really curious to hear it. How was it feeling?
I have to say that one, you know, that was my first time on a show that size. You know, first of all, the show came back to do another season after a long hiatus. So there was a lot of expectation about the show. And that was right at the time that I had decided to go from unscripted back into scripted, because, you know, I had this like 5-6 years of focusing on advertising. I was producing content and documentaries about advertising. And I thought, you know, I'm going to go back into the scripted world when the right opportunity comes. It was in my mind. And then I got the phone call to come do Prison Break, and I thought, okay, maybe this is too much to go jump from. I said I wanted you be careful what you wish for, because it will come.
Yeah.
And I have to say I was a little bit intimidated because the size of the show, like, I don't know how to describe. I mean, you walk in to the sets and it's like magic. They had the best people come from, we had special painters come, specifically people we found in Italy, for example, that we brought in, because there was a beautiful budget. When you have that kind of a budget and those level of professionals that come from all corners of the world to make something happen, it really felt like a privilege. It was, I don't have anything bad to say about it. Of course, it's high stress. Everything is high stress. And that's something I want to say, like, having worked in different levels of, like, from the smallest, short movies with a skeleton crew, to like things like Prison Break. At the end of the day, in a way, I would say it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit different, obviously, but in a way, it's the same. It's the same level of dedication you need to put in. You need to bring your best self no matter what it is that you're doing. So that's it. So hopefully you have. It's lovely when there's a resources and a budget to help, the craft. And I think then you're lucky enough to have something like Prison Break. But yeah, beautiful series, and still people want it to come back. I'm like, I don't know if they can bring Michael Scofield back again one more season. But yeah.
Okay. And about your proficiency, I wanted to ask you this because usually it's been a few years that I'm lecturing film students, and usually they wanted to be a director.
Yes.
Whenever they decide to, a career in film industry, the first, I was just like them. I am just like them, wanted to tell the story, narrate a story. So whether you can be a script writer or a director, and sometimes those who are good at constructing things, they prefer to stay in editing section or post production to engage with the software programs, but it is kind of a rare to come up with the idea of I'm going to be producer. So this is something actually very clever move to starting from there. And actually during our classes we are trying to explain who is doing what in film sets, but let's hear from you, from the experts, who is producer and why it is she is or he is important.
Okay. Yeah, producer, that's a really good question. There are different types of producers, and on each show, it's going to change depending on who the other producers are, and sometimes even who the main actor and director are. So generally, producers are known to be the people who assemble a project. So often the producer will get a story by credit because they're there right from the inception. They're the one who thought of the idea to create a show like this. They got the idea that, okay, we're going to do a murder mystery, about a female detective, who owns a little shop but decides to become a detective when a murder happens in her store, for example. That's not this movie. There's another series that's similar with that story, for example. And then you have to then think, okay, what do I need to, who could star in this? And then you get involved in the casting. You help finance it sometimes. Now, because there's so many responsibilities, often there are at least a team of 3, 4, even from the beginning, producers who handle different aspects. So generally the EP, what's credited as EP on, which is executive producer, on sort of scripted, in the scripted world of film mostly, because this changes again in television, but in film, that's the person who's responsible mainly for the financing usually, okay, or bringing a key cast members sometimes. The general producer is the one who shepherds the project, everything else to behind the scenes, the business side of the movie. But again, even for the business side, that will get involved with marketing, which comes later. You basically are overseeing, you think of it as the CEO of the company. You oversee all the departments as they come together right from the beginning of the movie. So whether it's so you come up with the idea, then it's finding the right writer, then overseeing that process of writing the story. Then the movie has to go to a network if you want it to be distributed. So that's probably the hardest, most challenging part, is convincing a network that this will add value to their slate of movies and why. And, then it's the budgeting, then, you get the green light for the financing, then it's about the budgeting, then it's about finding the right team. And then when you go to camera, it's overseeing the whole process to make sure nothing goes wrong. You're responsible really for, it's a big responsibility. But again, it's not, it sounds daunting, but you can't do everything. You usually, especially on the big shows, you usually have a very specific role that you're doing with a team of producers, whatever that is. So I hope that, I know it's hard to answer in a small, trying to condense everything, but we will have questions after also. So I hope that gives an overview.
Okay. So actually, producer is kind of the narrator, actually, in a sense.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. About the producing, when I see your career, I see only there's one documentary that you produced, and it is internationally acclaimed and important documentary.
Yes.
Can you tell something about this special documentary?
Sure.
Is space available?
Yeah, so this was, I would say, as far as documentaries usually are done, again, on smaller budget. This one was like a mammoth. We went to over 15 countries. It took 3 years. This was in partnership with a major branding figure who had founded, a leading branding firm, top 10 worldwide. That went public. The company had gone public, and then after that, this was at the time he'd started brewing on the idea of doing something that explores advertising, because clearly, we're still figuring this out as things are going more and more. Now things are going into the world of VR in the metaverse, and then there's going to be another deliberation of how does advertising fit in there. At that time, it was on the cusp of what is the future of advertising? That was really the question. The biggest question, though, the inspiration for the film came from the mayor of Sao Paulo. Had passed the law called the Cidade Limpa, which translates into clean city, which was who controls or who has a voice in our cityscapes. When we see billboards and advertising and commercial messaging, is that something the public desires? There was a lot of questions around this in Sao Paulo, and the advertising had gone really off the rails. It was to the point where you couldn't see the city skyline. It was cluttered with billboards. So he took all of that down, which, as you know, advertising is billions and billions of dollars. It's a very big industry. So it's not something you can just take away. But he did that. So the inspiration to go and follow that story was huge, for people that work in advertising, like ourselves at the time. We were, in the branding world, so we were like, we have to go document this and see what's happening and why, and what does this mean for the future. And from there were other stories happening, in LA. And so the whole project just got bigger and bigger as we set out to explore this topic of, how does advertising occupy the spaces we live in? What are the different angles of that argument, and what is the future of advertising? And that was so it became something that really now still today is in the syllabus of different schools and things like that, and it's sort of a piece that for a specific topic of interest. But yeah.
Do you planning, or do you wanted to do another documentary?
At the
Are there anything on the table?
No, you know what? Right now, actually, I have a full slate of. The reason I showed you this Hallmark movie also is I have a whole like slate of. We're up to 9 projects in development right now. There are TV movies. We have a feature, possibly a co-production with Turkey also. Godson, which you saw, which hopefully that will go soon. So I'm in development of TV and film right now, fiction scripted. No plans for a documentary at the moment.
Oh.
No.
And the other thing is about when I make my research, I see that you actually a role model for female producers.
Yes.
And I saw the ratings about the representation of female producers in Hollywood and male, and it was belonging to 2019.
Yes.
You are still in there in 2023. Are there any increasement or?
Yes, and but thank you for asking this question because it is something I'm very passionate about.
Yes.
And right now is the time. I don't know if anybody viewed the Golden Globes, which aired a couple of nights ago, which is like a precursor to the Oscars. It's also a pretty prominent award show here, and it was mostly diverse. It was all about diversity. So women, people from different backgrounds, also that ethnic backgrounds, and it's about inclusion now. So why is that important? Because the world is made up of different kinds of people, and it's important, I think, that everybody has a voice and is represented. And for women it hasn't been an easy road for different reasons. So it's an exciting time now, I think. Now is our chance as women, I would say, as people also. But so yes, I really do champion this. And I think it is getting better. I mean, I don't know, to answer the question exactly, since 2019, I would say there is improvement overall. It's hard, like to quantify things sometimes because there's so much movement, and like people do those studies and they say, okay, well, there's this many women in this company right now, and there's this many. But we're in a time where people people jump from one place to another. So the numbers, they're there. But just by looking with the naked eye, even, yes, I would say there's a visible difference. So I'm happy for that.
And you're not only one of the female producers in Hollywood, but you're also one of the Turkish Cypriot
Yes.
producers in Hollywood, which actually you are our proud. We are very happy. And my last question, which is actually for students, it is the question about your advices about the road to film industry. They're now some of them are in 3rd grade, some of them are in 2nd grade. They're about to graduate. So what will be their first steps according to your experiences? What would you like to say to them?
That's a very good question. Depending on what the focus, if you don't know exactly which part of the filmmaking process you want to be in, my advice then would be to get a general internship at a production company, or at a network, or just with people who are making the type of content, at least, that interests you. As by a general internship, you can have a good overview of how the whole thing functions, and try different roles before you decide. Now, if you say, I want to be a director, and I know that already, which I'm sure, like you were saying, a good portion of students, that's the goal, and that's perfectly fine. We always need great directors, Then the advice probably would be, I would say, try to create your own content, and get it circulating in on different platforms. Self-publishing is great. It's very easy to throw up a channel and do that and try to market yourself that way. But I would also advise, obviously, the obvious thing, which is, getting into festivals and getting people to write about you, getting in front of people who are opinion makers to say something. And keep trying, because the thing with directing is like, it's about finding your stamp, your personal, personally for me, there'll be different varying opinions, but when I look through and I'm trying to decide, well, who do I want to work with as a director on a specific project, I'm looking for something that makes that person stand out, but stand out in the way that I need for that specific project, So there's a risk in that where some people don't like to be super distinctive, because then it puts you into a box and it's harder to get out of that box. For example, you are the type of director that focuses on, let's say, a very edgy, kind of gritty, real style. So it's going to be harder for, something like, Hallmark movie, to be hired on something like that, or family programming. But there is some cases where, there could be overlap, but it doesn't matter, because if you're in that niche, I feel like the market now is so saturated that it's an interesting way to just focus on a specific niche and style and try to, gain prominence there. That's one way to do it, I think, as a director, definitely, and something to think about. Then, of course, there's the more usual way of, if you have a broader scope of aesthetic, then, certainly, definitely keep doing that, and just really put it in front of as many people as you can. I'll say more about this later, because there's definitely, when specific questions come, it's easier to also answer, because it does vary a bit too.
Now, dear friends, if you have a question, please. Okay, Oscar, can you come? I need to give you the microphone so Chidem Hanım can hear us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can look at the camera and ask, and then we will hear the answer.
I can't hear.
So,
Just a second, Oscar.
Sure. Now,
I see. Oscar, can you come closer to the microphone? Yes, now you can.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Brilliant.
Okay, thank you very much for your advice and presentation to us. My name is Oscar. I'm a Nigerian. I'm studying film design and directing. So I have 3 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is, as a film producer, how do you survey the market to ensure that your movie is going to have a good marketing network after production?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. So that's a very good question, because you can make the movie as great as you want, and if you don't have a plan for circulation, who's going to see the movie? Very good question. So it depends who we made the movie for to start with. What was the goal? What was the intention? Who were we working with? Now, if the question is you're making a movie yourself as an individual with no distribution already attached, that's one marketing plan. If you've been hired by a network, then the marketing is built into, I guess your question no more is, if you make a movie yourself and you want a good marketing plan, is that the question exactly? Or do you mean how does it work with, that's the question. Okay. So if you're making a movie like an independent, my advice, again, depending on what kind of a budget you have, word of mouth actually is probably still today the most solid way to advertise any product, whether it's a movie, a different product. Getting the content in front of people who are going to watch it, talk about it on socials, circulate in front of as many groups as possible. Research, for example, depending on what the topic of the movie is about. Align with interest groups and communities that would be interested in the movie, depending on the topic. That's one way. Sometimes it's through the cast, a cast member, if that person has a specific following, getting them excited about the movie. I would really advise, though, working with, if you're able to, working with someone who has a focus in marketing even. That's a valuable asset. If you can partner with somebody, I think team building is a very key part of success. Just in my own experience, you can't do everything by yourself, and there's a lot to do. Like when you're an emerging director, you need to focus on directing the movie and making sure you make the best movie possible. Of course, you need to think about how you're going to get in front of people, but if there's a way for you, like whether in your program right now, someone stands out that you have a friendship with, for example, with a focus in marketing, try to align with a person like that, definitely, and do some planning together. That's one way to do it, but really look at the topic and who's going to be interested, and try to build community. Does that answer the question? Or
Yes, perfectly. Thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
How many questions do you have, Oscar?
I'll ask just two.
One more? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. As a female producer, what is your greatest fear as a film producer?
Fear?
When you're back on the project, what is your greatest fear?
Greatest
Oh, that's a good question. The biggest fear always is that I guess the movie is not going to be as successful as you want it to be. Depends what your personal agenda is, or but it's interesting because I don't think fear is a positive thing. So what I do is if a little voice comes, I just completely stay like very positive. So I don't let the fear in. I'm a trooper. No, but of course a big fear always is, your worst nightmare can be that, okay, sometimes you don't really know until the end, like what you have. And of course everybody goes in hoping for the best movie possible. So that's a real fear, that it's not going to turn out like what you thought.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Oscar. Who is next? Who wants to be next? Please, Ali. There you go.
Hi.
Look to the camera is over there.
Hi. I want to ask, if you want to rate 1 to 10, how hard it is to enter to Hollywood from someone like us in North Cyprus? Yeah. Like, what are the chances that we can succeed reaching to the place that you are working at?
I think honestly right now it's a lot easier because in some ways, okay, there's different challenges at different times. Now I feel like the market is much more saturated. There's more people, but it's easier, and that's why because of the diversity, there's a big advantage. And when the topic of me coming here to talk to you all today came up, I actually was very happy to accept, because if nothing else, just to send you all the message that this is your moment, because this is the best time when people from different backgrounds, different voices, there's a platform now for everyone. And it took a long time for the industry to evolve to this point, but it's finally here. So people from minority backgrounds, people, different ethnicities. So I think to answer the question, scale of 1 to 10, success comes by your own, I think I can't give you this based on Cyprus. It's not about Cyprus. It's more about the individual. I think any individual, if you really believe, I know it sounds very, very cliche, but cliches are very real. If you really believe you will succeed and you put everything into it and you don't accept defeat, you will succeed. It's just a question of how long. If you're committed, it will happen. So I think the chances are really strong now, much stronger than they've ever been. So I don't know, scale of 1 to 10, it's so hard to say. If the person is really, committed, sure, there's a chance of between 5 to 10, anywhere from 5 to 10, because some of it is luck for sure, some of it is timing, but a lot of it is the individual's own commitment to the work.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Yes. Next question. No,
Nope.
they are all shy, I think.
Oh,
They're supposed to be. But what I learned from this conversation and from your career is being very determined, very clear about what you're asking, what you want, what you expect. And as you said in another interview, you have to be good at what you are doing.
yes.
Doesn't matter you are doing in Cyprus or in Canada or in Africa, it doesn't matter. You have to be good at your own field.
Yeah.
I think that is the main trick, the keyword.
Yeah, and being good, but like being good in a way that distinguishes you from other people also, because what are you bringing? That's a good question to always ask. Are you good at what you do, but what can I bring? That's a good question to ask. What can I bring that will make me stand out from someone else?
Yes. Okay, my final question then about the current themes, or I don't know, the taglines or the keywords in especially in Hollywood. What are they? What are they sensitive of now? Because things can change. Some subjects becomes more popular
Sure.
for a limited time and then can change. Now, I'm asking on behalf of my students, which part is more close to guarantee? Maybe it's not 100% guarantee, but which themes that they should have focus on in order to get a result?
That's a good question. I know that right now we're seeing an emergence of we're living in a time right now, to quote a friend of mine also who says this always, is that like we're living in a time where there's a lot of there's trouble in the world. So any kind of, don't forget that this medium is entertainment,
Yeah.
So, and I think no matter what genre, sure, there's always going to be a demand, I can say, for the thriller, suspense, love stories are emerging more and more now because they provide this thing of fantasy and escape. The big franchise ideas of superheroes, anything that's high concept, I think maybe that's a good summary. High concept is always in demand. If you're able to create something that is based on the imagination, that you take people into another world, into a world that is not the ordinary. Sometimes it can be based in an ordinary world. But even the clip I just shared, for example, I chose this for a couple of reasons. One was because here's a girl, she has her ordinary life as a host, but then now something extraordinary happened. There's this murder that happened that she has to solve. So already that even is putting a very unique circumstance into an otherwise ordinary setting, But you can go much further than that. It could be like Avatar. Think of the world we go in when we watch something like Avatar. So these type of things are definitely always in demand. If you're able to create a story that puts people in another world, that's a good way to
Okay,
go about it.
I think our students get their notes for it. Are there any questions? I'm very used to this silence after my lectures.
I know, that's
always keep silence. Are there any questions? Is it clear? Seems like everything is clear.
Great.
And I think we can come to an end. We can finish the interview here. It was very fun and it was a very good experience for me.
Thank you for having me. Me too.
We are thanking you for accepting our invitation. I hope we will see each other in another projects, in another interviews, maybe.
Sure. Me too. And I wish everybody luck, and just keep believing, you know, if you want to keep believing and make yourself available. Can I say one more thing? It's like when you get out there, wherever it is, just do the work, even if it's volunteering to start with, build relationships. That I wanted to also say. It's very important.
Thank you very much.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
So till that time, I wish you a successful and a good life and a career.
Thank you, and bless everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was not a bad shot, but this is not how it all started. I've always been dreaming of becoming a filmmaker. I believe that a good movie can make our world a better place. But I need to learn more. Life is like a video game. It's fun and it's challenging at the same time. Every accomplished mission leads to another one. Look at these harmonious moves. A perfect combination of mind and body, absolute freedom of self-expression. Art imitates life, and nature is the ultimate masterpiece. To design like a master, you must learn the basics and then go beyond. But how? So our journey began to this magical place, Cyprus. We found our voices. We heard each other's songs. We captured our moment, and we painted our lives. Not to mention the fun. We illuminated our future. We learned from the past. The craft and the knowledge came together to create art. There's a lot to discover and a lot to be done. We were taken by hand, one by one. The journey goes on, and the future is bright. The seeds we planted will give years of beautiful blossoms. So our dreams came to life, and life became like a dream. The magic is real, only if you believe. The journey we began finally came to an end. But it's time for a new start. Now, let's take another shot.
Ah!